I remember the day I first met Grayson, like it was just yesterday. I was sitting in a little dive cafe, sipping on the cheapest cup of coffee they had, trying to organize my scattered thoughts and figure out my next steps in life. Then suddenly he walked in, almost like a scene out of a movie. But there weren't any dramatic lights or background music, just the ring of the doorbell and the mix of stale coffee and the sharp scent of his aftershave. "Is this seat taken?" he asked, pointing to the chair across from me with a smile that could knock anyone off their feet. I played it cool, though my heart was racing. "Looks free to me," I replied, trying not to sound flustered by his unexpected appearance. We started chatting, and it was like we were made from the same mold. He was into all the quirky stuff I liked, from binge-watching cheesy TV shows to heated debates about the best pizza topping, pineapple, by the way, which he defended passionately. Fast forward a bit, and suddenly, we weren't just casually seeing each other. We were really dating, and it felt like I'd known him my whole life. Before we knew it, we were talking about getting married. That's when things got complicated. His parents, well, they were a whole different story. Meeting them for the first time was like walking into a lion's den. They had this way of smiling at you while also sizing you up, as if they were deciding if you were worth their time. "So, you're the girl Grayson can't stop talking about?" his mom asked, her tone sweet but with an edge that made me feel uneasy. "Guilty as charged," I replied, trying to keep my nerves in check, even though her attitude was getting under my skin. It wasn't long before they laid down their rules, making it clear that Grayson and I needed to sign a prenup. Now, I'm no gold digger, and I certainly don't need anyone's money, but the way they went about it rubbed me the wrong way. "I'll sign your prenup," I said firmly. "But I've got one condition. If either of us cheats, the cheater pays the other $200,000. Grayson looked shocked, like I had just slapped him. "Babe, I would never cheat on you," he said, wide-eyed and serious. "Yeah, well, my ex said the same thing." Right before I caught him in the act, I shot back, making it clear this was non-negotiable. "So, it's this or nothing." He agreed, and his parents reluctantly did too, though they didn't look happy about it. They acted like they had just swallowed something bitter. We thought that was the end of the drama, but boy, were we wrong. One evening, we were cuddled up on our old, beat-up couch, one we had planned to replace 100 times but never did because it had become our spot. The TV was on, but we weren't really watching. We were too busy dreaming up plans for a trip to Italy, a trip we knew we couldn't afford but were determined to make happen. "Grayson, think about it. The food, the wine, the art. We have to go," I said, my eyes lighting up with excitement. He laughed, pulling me closer. "Tessa, babe, you had me at food. But let's be real. Our bank account is more camping in the backyard than romantic getaway to Venice." I playfully nudged him. "So, we'll save up. We'll cut back on things we don't need, like, I don't know, your video games." He pretended to be horrified. "Not the video games. Take my shirts, my shoes, even my coffee maker, but not the games." We laughed. That was us. Always dreaming big, but still grounded in reality. We didn't need anything fancy to be happy. Our joy was in the small things, like Grayson making breakfast on Saturdays. He couldn't cook to save his life, but somehow he had mastered scrambled eggs and toast, served with a side of terrible coffee. Still, I loved those mornings. "Hey, I'm thinking scrambled eggs today. What do you think?" he'd ask, already making his way to the kitchen. "Only if you promise not to burn the toast this time," I'd yell back, adding, "and I'm making the coffee." One day, the topic we had been dancing around finally came up. We were doing dishes together, a simple task that somehow felt special because we were doing it side by side. "Tessa," Grayson said, breaking the comfortable silence, "we need to talk about starting a family." I paused, a plate still in my hand. "I know. It's scary, isn't it? What if we can't?" Grayson turned to me, drying his hands on a towel. "Then we'll handle it together. But we won't know unless we try, right? I mean, how hard can it be?" I laughed, a mix of nervousness and love bubbling up. Famous last words, babe. But that was our thing. No matter what life threw at us, we faced it together. Even when his mom started dropping not-so-subtle hints about grandchildren every chance she got, we managed to laugh it off. "Tessa, "Darling, when are you going to give me some grandbabies?" she'd say, her voice dripping with sweetness, though her message was anything but. "You're not getting any younger, you know." I'd force a smile, biting my tongue. "We're working on it, aren't we, Grayson?" He'd always jump in to defend me. "Yeah, Mom, relax. These things take time." And that's just how things were with us. We took it all in stride. Together, as the year dragged on, the pressure started to pile up, not just from Grayson's mom, Marlo, but from inside our own hearts. We wanted a family so badly, but it just wasn't happening as easily as we'd hoped. Ever since Marlo found her new hobby of making my life miserable, our home had turned into a battlefield, and her weapon of choice was her sharp, unforgiving tongue. What once were occasional snide remarks had turned into a daily assault on my confidence and my role as a wife. Things came to a head one Sunday at lunch, a day that was supposed to be laid back and peaceful. Marlo, with her impeccable sense of bad timing, showed up uninvited just as we were about to sit down. The atmosphere instantly turned tense the moment she walked through the door, her eyes scanning the room like she was about to conduct a military inspection. "Well, isn't this just cozy?" she started, her voice dripping with sarcasm as her eyes flicked over the simple meal I had prepared. "You've really outdone yourself, Tessa. I can tell you've been slaving away in the kitchen all morning." Her gaze met mine briefly, the corners of her mouth lifting into a smug smirk. I forced a smile, determined to keep the peace. "It's nothing fancy, Marlo. Just something quick and easy. Please have a seat." But as soon as we sat down, she wasted no time launching into her usual routine. "You know, Tessa," she said, her voice laced with condescension, "I was talking to Mrs. Henderson the other day, and she mentioned that her grandson was just born. It got me thinking, when are you and Grayson going to give me some good news? It's not like you're getting any younger." I could feel my face flush with a mix of embarrassment and anger. I glanced at Grayson, silently pleading for some support, but he was suddenly very interested in his plate. "Mom, come on," Grayson muttered weakly, but it was half-hearted and we all knew it. Marlo pressed on, relentless. "And Grayson, dear, I don't mean to be harsh, but you're not a charity. You work hard for your money. Why waste it on Tessa if she can't even fulfill her basic duties as a wife? A cleaning service and a cook would be much more efficient, don't you think?" That's when I snapped. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Marlo, I'm trying my best here. It's not like I don't want kids. And as for the house and my cooking, I didn't realize marriage was a service contract." Marlo scoffed. "Well, it's not a free ride either. You have responsibilities, Tessa, ones you're clearly not living up to." The air in the room was thick with tension, and I could feel tears stinging the back of my eyes. But what hurt more than Marlo's cruel words was Grayson's silence. He finally spoke, but his words stung even more. "Yeah, Mom has a point. Maybe we should think about getting some help around here. It'd make things easier for you, too." "Easier for me?" His words felt like a knife in my back. It was becoming painfully clear that I was fighting this battle alone. Over the next few days, Marlo's visits became more frequent, and with each one, her criticism grew sharper. She'd inspect every corner of the house, pointing out any tiny flaw. "You call this clean?" she'd scoff. "My eyes must be playing tricks on me, because this looks like a pigsty." Then came the jabs about my appearance. "Is that what you're wearing? You know, a wife should dress to please her husband. No wonder Grayson is always so tired. He has to come home to this." I tried to stand up for myself. "Marlo, I don't dress for Grayson. I dress for me. And he's tired because he works hard, not because of what I wear." But it was like talking to a brick wall. Marlo had already made up her mind about me, and nothing I said would change that. The worst part wasn't even Marlo's constant criticisms, it was Grayson's refusal to take my side. After every one of her visits, we'd argue. "Why won't you stand up for me, Grayson? She's walking all over us, and you're just letting it happen. She's old, Tessa, set in her ways. What do you want me to do? Kick my own mom out?" "No, I just want you to be my husband. To stand by me, not her." It was becoming clearer that this was about more than just Marlo's disapproval. It was about our marriage. whether we were strong enough to stand united, or whether we'd let Marlo's harsh words tear us apart. As the days turned into weeks, I realized this wasn't just a passing phase. It felt like we were under siege, and if we didn't act soon, there might not be anything left to save. Things between me and Grayson had become chilly ever since Marlo had ramped up her campaign of criticism, but it wasn't just the tension at home. Grayson had started acting strange, and it wasn't the kind of weird that comes from being stressed at work. It was something deeper, something that made my stomach twist with unease. It started with the phone calls. Grayson had always been pretty open about his phone. We didn't have secrets from each other. But recently, every time he got a call, he'd step out of the room, and the caller ID always showed the same name: John Work. "Who's John Work?" I asked one evening, trying to keep my tone light. Grayson flinched, a clear sign that he was on edge. "Oh, just a new guy at the office. Lots of questions, you know." But it didn't stop there. Grayson, who had never cared much about his appearance, suddenly started paying attention to the way he dressed. Gone were the old graphic t-shirts and worn-out jeans. Now it was crisp button-up shirts and slacks. And cologne. He was wearing cologne now. Since when did he care about smelling like a department store? I thought to myself, watching Grayson get ready one morning. The new clothes, the cologne, the sudden attention to his appearance. It wasn't like him. "What's with the new look, Grayson? Got a job interview or something?" I joked, trying to keep it light, but I couldn't shake the unease growing inside me. He smirked a little too quickly. "Just felt like changing things up. No harm in that, right?" But the changes weren't just about his clothes. The late nights at work were becoming more frequent. He'd text me, "Another long one, babe. Sorry, this project's killing me. Won't be late, I promise." But the clock would tick past midnight, and I'd still be waiting, pretending everything was fine. I tried to dismiss it, convincing myself it was just work stress. But the feeling that something was wrong clung to me like a shadow. That's when I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private detective. It felt surreal, like something out of a bad TV show, but I had to know the truth. When the envelope arrived, I stared at it for what felt like hours before I finally opened it. The contents were as heartbreaking as they were damning. Photos of Grayson with another woman, their intimacy undeniable. In each frame, they looked happy, wrapped up in a world that didn't include me. But it wasn't just the photos. The recording was the real dagger. I listened to their conversations, filled with endearments and plans. They weren't just having an affair. They were in love. Or at least, Grayson was in love with her. I sat there, the evidence spread out in front of me, my heart breaking piece by piece. This was it, the proof that could shatter our marriage and anchor me in a stormy divorce, should it come to that. But I wasn't ready to confront him. Not yet. I needed a plan, a way to navigate this wreckage with my dignity intact. For days, I carried the secret like a heavy stone, pretending everything was normal. Grayson continued his charade, and I played the part of the perfect wife, smiling, cooking, cleaning, all while the weight of the truth crushed me from the inside. Our conversations became rehearsed, each word measured carefully. We danced around the elephant in the room, pretending everything was fine. "Everything okay, Em? You've been quiet lately," Grayson asked one evening, his concern sounding almost genuine. "Yeah, just tired. Work's been crazy." I lied, the words bitter on my tongue. It was just another day until it wasn't. I was passing by Grayson's office when I heard voices. The door was slightly ajar and I paused. It was Grayson and his mother, Marlo. Their conversation wasn't casual, it was heavy, laced with something darker. "I'm telling you, Mom, I can't do this anymore. It's not just about the kids. I've lost all feeling for Tessa. It's like we're roommates, not husband and wife." Grayson's voice came through, strained and tired. Marlo's reply was sharp, her tone dripping with her usual disdain. "Well, of course you feel that way. She hasn't given you a child. And let's be honest, what else has she brought to this marriage? But let's not rush things. My 68th birthday is coming up, and we wouldn't want to miss out on a generous gift from her now, would we?" Her cynicism was like a knife, twisting in my gut. They were plotting against me. using me until it was convenient to discard me. Grayson's voice turned cold, calculated. And after we get that nice, expensive gift, we can kick her to the curb, right? Exactly, dear. Marlo confirmed, her voice oozing malice. Just bide your time a little longer. I stood there, frozen. They were planning my exit from this family like it was a grocery list, and I was nothing more than a disposable item. The hurt ran deep, but with it came something else, a burning desire for revenge. They thought they could use me and throw me aside? They were wrong. I wasn't just a pawn in their twisted game. I was going to show them exactly what I was capable of. A few days later, during a family dinner, Marlo, with her signature smirk, brought up her upcoming birthday. So, Tessa dear, what are you planning for my birthday? Something special, I hope. I met her gaze, my face a mask of calm. Actually, Marlo, I was thinking of throwing you a dinner at the city's most luxurious restaurant. A night you won't forget. Her eyes lit up with greed, and she exchanged a quick, satisfied look with Grayson. They thought they had me cornered. Little did they know I was already 2 steps ahead. Oh, Tessa, that sounds delightful. Just close family, to keep it intimate, Marlo said, her voice fake and sugary sweet. Of course, Marlo. It'll be our pleasure, I replied, the words feeling like poison on my tongue. The weeks leading up to Marlo's 68th birthday felt like a slow march toward my own personal D-Day. Every smug comment from her, every indifferent shrug from Grayson, only fueled my resolve. The plan was simple yet bold, straight out of a movie. Host a lavish dinner under the guise of a loving gesture, then drop the bombshell. The night before the party, the tension at home was palpable. Grayson, completely oblivious to what was brewing, was lounging on the couch, scrolling through his phone. Everything set for tomorrow? He asked, not even bothering to look up. Oh, you could say that, I replied, my voice calm, belying the storm raging inside me. The day of the party arrived, and as guests filled the luxurious dining room I had reserved, the air was thick with anticipation. My heart raced, not from nerves, but from the adrenaline coursing through me. Marlo, basking in the attention as usual, lavished praise on the restaurant. Oh, Tessa, you've outdone yourself. This place is exquisite, she exclaimed loudly enough for everyone to hear. As the meal progressed, the conversations felt forced, the laughter hollow. But I played along, knowing what was coming. As the dessert plates were cleared, the waiter discreetly approached me with the bill. $66,000, he whispered. Without a second thought, I handed over my card, the gesture unnoticed by most. Then, just as Grayson's smirk spread across his face, he decided it was time to make his move. Tessa, he began, his tone cold and detached. I think it's time everyone knew. I'm tired of this. Of us. The tension between us had been brewing for months, but Grayson's declaration caught me off guard. I want a divorce, he said, his words hanging in the air like a toxic cloud. It sucked the noise out of the room, leaving only a suffocating silence. I sat frozen for a moment, my mind racing to process the weight of his statement. Before I could respond, Marlo, ever quick to twist the knife, chimed in. Well then, since that's out in the open, I think it's best you leave, Tessa. We're celebrating family tonight, and you're no longer part of it. The room went deadly quiet. All eyes turned to me, waiting for the inevitable collapse. But instead of crumbling, I stood with a calmness I didn't truly feel. Without a word, I nodded and walked out, the cool night air slapping me as I left behind the only life I had known for years. Each step home was heavy, the reality of what had just happened sinking in. By the time I reached the apartment, his apartment, a plan had already begun to take shape in my mind. There was no time for tears, no room for sorrow. I packed quickly, numbed by the cold resolve that had settled over me. This was the end of one life and the start of another. As I zipped up the last suitcase, my phone buzzed with a relentless vibration. I ignored it at first, but when curiosity got the better of me, I saw Marlo's name flashing on the screen. Her voice, sharp and grating, immediately filled my ear. Tessa, the payment didn't go through. You need to fix this now. Oh, the irony. In my preparations for the inevitable, I had blocked the shared account, knowing it would be the first thing Grayson would try to use against me. I let the words sink in, savoring the moment before replying calmly. That's unfortunate, Marlo. But since I'm no longer part of the family, as you so eloquently put it, you'll have to figure this one out. Her outrage exploded through the phone, her words screeching with venom. But to me, it was music. I could already imagine the chaos unfolding at the restaurant, the staff demanding payment, Marlo throwing tantrums, and eventually, the arrival of the police to calm the scene. It was a fitting end to the sham my marriage had become. The next morning, with the divorce papers in hand, I returned to what used to be our shared home for one final time. As soon as I stepped through the door, the tension in the air was palpable. Grayson and Marlo were already arguing, but when they saw me, their hostility turned into a united front. "You've got some nerve showing up here after last night," Grayson spat, his face a mask of disbelief and anger. Marlo, ever the viper, hissed in agreement. "Ungrateful wretch. You embarrassed us in front of the whole city. Do you know how humiliating it was to have the police show up?" People were laughing, filming. I met their fury with a calm I didn't truly feel. Embarrassed? You think that's your biggest problem right now? I tossed the divorce papers onto the table, the damning photos of Grayson's affair on top. You should be more concerned with this. Grayson's face went white as he picked up the photos, Marlo peering over his shoulder. Their anger turned to shock, then panic as the reality of their situation settled in. "And let's not forget the prenup, shall we?" I added, my voice cold. "You cheat, you pay. $100,000 to be exact." Marlo's face twisted into a snarl. "You wouldn't dare. You can't do this to us." "Oh, but I can and I will." Grayson, realizing the gravity of the situation, switched tactics. Please, let's talk about this. We can fix it." I couldn't help but laugh, a bitter sound escaping my throat. "Fix it? You think you can undo all of this with a few words?" "No, Grayson, it's done." Marlo tried her own manipulative approach, her voice softening as she oozed fake concern. "Tessa, darling, think about what you're doing. This will ruin us." I stared at her, my resolve unwavering. "That ship has sailed, Marlo. You should have thought about that before." Their pleas grew more desperate, but I had already made up my mind. I was done being their pawn. In the end, Grayson had no choice but to borrow money from his parents to pay me. As I left the house for the last time, check in hand, I felt an unexpected lightness. The weight of their betrayal had been lifted, and I was finally free. With the payout, I secured a small but cozy place of my own. It wasn't grand, but it was mine. Every nook a sanctuary from the chaos of my old life. Life was quieter now, and I liked it that way. I had a job that kept me busy, friendly neighbors who waved in passing, and a little garden that I could tend to with care. But every now and then, a little tidbit of news from the old life would trickle my way. Just the other day, while grabbing coffee at a local spot, I bumped into someone from the old neighborhood. After the usual pleasantries, they leaned in, their voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Have you heard about the latest drama with your ex and his mom?" I raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. "Can't say that I have." "Do tell." The gossip was delicious. Apparently, Grayson's new girlfriend wasn't faring too well with Marlo. They fought like cats and dogs, and it made my situation seem like a walk in the park. As I walked away, coffee in hand, I couldn't help but feel relieved. Once, news like that would have left me spiraling.
But now?
It was just another piece of someone else's drama. These days, my biggest worries revolve around whether my tomatoes will ripen before the squirrels get to them, or if I'll ever master yoga without looking like a newborn deer on ice. Life is simpler, quieter, and infinitely sweeter on this side of chaos.